The rental car's headlights swept across my driveway at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't supposed to be home until Friday. The engineering conference in Seattle had been canceled at the last minute. Something about the keynote speaker having a medical emergency. I'd tried calling Helen to let her know I was catching an earlier flight, but the phone just rang and rang. Michael didn't pick up either. I told myself they were probably asleep. It was late, after all. But the house wasn't dark. Every window blazed with light. Music pounded through the walls. I could hear it from the driveway, bass-heavy, loud enough to rattle the windows. My first thought was that Michael had left the TV on too loud. Helen sometimes got agitated in the evenings. The doctors called it sundowning. Maybe he'd turned up the volume to drown out her confusion. I pulled my suitcase from the trunk and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. That sent the first spike of unease through my chest. Michael knew better. We'd had the security talk a dozen times since Helen's diagnosis. Lock the doors, set the alarm, keep her safe. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Cigarette smoke, beer, and something else, marijuana, in my house. My living room had been transformed into something I didn't recognize. The furniture was pushed against the walls. A professional-looking poker table sat in the center of the room, surrounded by 8 men I'd never seen before. Chips stacked high, cash scattered across the green felt, thousands of dollars, just sitting there. Michael sat at the head of the table, dealing cards with practiced efficiency. He wore a dealer's visor and one of those green accountant's eye shades. My son, running an illegal poker game in my living room while I paid him $5,000 a month to take care of his mother. Nobody noticed me at first. I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. Vanessa, Michael's wife, circulated through the room with a tray of drinks. She wore a short black dress and heels. Cocktail waitress cosplay in my home. "Ante up, gentlemen," Michael called out. "Table stakes are 200 minimum." I found my voice. "Where's your mother?" The music seemed to get louder in the sudden silence. 8 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Michael's face went white. The cards slipped from his fingers and scattered across the table. "Dad." He stood up so fast, his chair tipped backward. "You're not supposed to be. I mean, we weren't expecting. Where is Helen?" I set my suitcase down carefully. My hands were shaking. I didn't trust myself to move too quickly. "She's upstairs. She's fine. She's sleeping." Michael glanced at Vanessa. Some silent communication passed between them. "The conference isn't until Friday. Why are you home?" "It was canceled. Where is your mother?" "I told you, she's upstairs. She's asleep. She had her medication at 8, just like always." Michael moved to block my path to the stairs. "Dad, listen, I can explain all this. These are just some friends. We're having a friendly game of—" I pushed past him. He grabbed my arm. I shook him off harder than I'd intended. He stumbled backward into the poker table, sending chips clattering to the floor. "Mr. Thompson, maybe we should go," one of the men said, standing up. I didn't care about them. I didn't care about the poker game or the money or the smoke filling my house. I took the stairs, 2 at a time. My knees protested. I was 65, not 25. But adrenaline pushed me forward. The master bedroom door was closed. I turned the handle, locked. From the outside, there was a deadbolt installed on the bedroom door. On the outside, when had that been put there? "Dad!" Wait, Michael was right behind me on the stairs. "Why is this door locked from the outside?" I spun to face him. "Why is my wife locked in her own bedroom? She wanders. You know she wanders. It's not safe. She could fall down the stairs, she could leave the house, and get lost." Dr. Peterson said we needed to take precautions. Dr. Peterson never said to lock her in like a prisoner. I rattled the handle again. "Open this door, now." Michael fumbled with his keys. His hands were shaking as badly as mine. The deadbolt clicked open. I pushed the door wide. The smell hit me like a physical force. Urine, sweat, sickness. The windows were closed despite the July heat. No air circulation. Just stale, heavy air that made my throat close up. Helen lay on the bed, curled on her side. She wasn't under the covers. She wore a nightgown I didn't recognize, thin and stained. Her hair, which she'd always kept so neat, stuck to her forehead in sweaty tangles. The bedside lamp was off. The only light came from the hallway behind me. "Helen?" I crossed to the bed and knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, it's me. It's Robert." Her eyes opened. They were unfocused, glassy. It took several seconds for her to register my face. When she did, she started crying. Not loud sobs. Quiet, exhausted tears that told me she'd cried herself dry already. "Robert." Her voice was a whisper. "You came back." "Of course I came back. I just went to Seattle for a few days." I touched her forehead. "Hot. Too hot. You're burning up. How long have you been like this?" "I don't know. Days, maybe. It's hard to remember." She tried to sit up and couldn't. Her arms shook with the effort. "They won't let me out. They said I'm being punished." "Punished for what?" "For asking for water. For trying to use the bathroom. For—" She trailed off, her eyes sliding away from mine. I wet the bed. "I'm sorry. I tried to hold it, but I couldn't get to the bathroom." My vision went red at the edges. I turned to look at Michael, still standing in the doorway. "You locked your mother in this room. You didn't let her use the bathroom. You didn't give her water. That's not—" "She's confused, Dad. You know how she gets. She makes things up. We brought her meals. We checked on her." Michael's voice rose defensively. "Taking care of someone with Alzheimer's is hard. You have no idea how hard. You're never here. You don't see what it's really like." I was gone for 3 days. 3 days, Michael. And I came home to find her locked in a room that smells like a prison cell. I stood up slowly. Every muscle in my body felt coiled tight, ready to snap. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know what she told you, but—" "The truth, Michael. How long?" Vanessa appeared beside him. She'd taken off the heels. Her makeup was smudged. "Mr. Thompson, your son works incredibly hard to take care of Helen. She's not an easy patient. She's combative. She refuses medication. She's sick, not criminal. And you two are supposed to be helping her, not torturing her." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No!" Michael lunged forward and grabbed the phone from my hand. "You can't do that. Do you know what will happen if you call 911? They'll investigate. They'll ask questions. Child Protective Services could get involved with Emma. Emma, my granddaughter. Michael and Vanessa's 8-year-old daughter. She was spending the summer at camp, or so they'd told me. Now I wondered if that was true either. "Give me back my phone." "Dad, please. Just let us explain. We can fix this. We can clean her up, open the windows, make things right. You don't need to call anyone." Michael backed toward the door, my phone clutched in his hand. "Just give us a chance to make this right." I looked at Helen. She'd closed her eyes again, too exhausted to follow the conversation. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. Fever, dehydration, maybe infection from lying in soiled bedding. She needed medical attention now. "Vanessa." I kept my voice level with tremendous effort. "Go downstairs and tell those men to leave. All of them. Now. Then come back up here with clean sheets, towels, and water. Do it now. Or I walk down those stairs and call the police myself from the landline." She looked at Michael. He gave a tiny nod. She disappeared down the hallway. "Michael, give me my phone." "Not until we talk about this rationally. There's nothing to talk about. You've been abusing your mother, the woman who raised you, the woman who sat with you every night when you had nightmares as a kid, who worked 2 jobs to pay for your college when your engineering scholarship didn't cover everything. This is how you repay her?" "I didn't ask for this." Michael's composure finally cracked. "I didn't ask to give up my life to take care of a woman who doesn't even remember who I am half the time. You want to talk about college? Fine. You paid for my first 2 years. You know who paid for the last 2? Me. Student loans that I'm still paying off at 38 years old. You know who else helps with those loans? You. The $5,000 a month you pay me to take care of Mom. Well, guess what? That money keeps my family afloat. It pays Emma's private school tuition. It pays our mortgage. So you decided to supplement it with an illegal poker game? It's not illegal. It's a private game among friends. With a house rake. I saw the chip system. You're taking a percentage of every pot. That's illegal in Washington state, and you know it. I took a step toward him. How much are you clearing? 1,000 a week? 2,000? He didn't answer. And my wife is locked upstairs like an animal so she doesn't interfere with your little enterprise. My voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Give me my phone, Michael. Last chance. Or what? You'll hit me? You've never laid a hand on me in your life. But his bravado was crumbling. He could see something in my face that made him nervous. No. I'll go downstairs, use the landline to call 911, and explain to the police that I came home to find my son running an illegal gambling operation while my wife was locked in a bedroom without food, water, or access to a bathroom. Then I'll let them sort it out. Voices drifted up from downstairs, the poker players leaving, grumbling about the interrupted game. Vanessa's voice, making excuses, promising to reschedule. Michael's shoulders slumped. He held out my phone. Fine, take it. But think about what you're doing. Think about Emma. Think about what this will do to the family. I took the phone. My hands were steadier now. I am thinking about family. I'm thinking about the woman in that bed who gave you everything, and how you repaid her. Vanessa came back with her arms full of clean linens and a large bottle of water. I sent them both downstairs while I helped Helen clean up and change. She was so weak, I had to support most of her weight. Her nightgown came off in pieces, the fabric having essentially disintegrated from being soiled and dried repeatedly. I tried not to think about how long she'd been lying there. Once she was in clean clothes and the bed was remade, I helped her drink water slowly. Too much too fast would make her sick. She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing easier, her color slightly better. I went downstairs. Michael and Vanessa sat on the couch, not touching, staring at opposite walls. The poker table was gone, folded up, and presumably stashed somewhere. The living room furniture was back in its normal arrangement. The smell of smoke lingered. Where's Emma? I asked. And I want the truth. At my mother's house in Spokane, Vanessa said quietly. She's been there for 3 weeks. Why? Because we didn't want her to see. To know. She trailed off. To know that you were running a poker game twice a week out of our house, Michael finished. Tuesday and Thursday nights. $800 buy-in. 10% rake. We've been doing it for 4 months. 4 months. I'd been traveling on and off for work, consulting jobs that took me away for weeks at a time. I'd trusted my son to take care of Helen. I'd paid him generously for it, and he'd used my absence to turn my home into a casino. The medical bills, Vanessa said. Her eyes were red. Helen's Alzheimer's medication costs $1,200 a month, even with insurance. The in-home care nurse we hired cost another $2,000. We couldn't afford it on just the $5,000 you were paying us. So you fired the nurse and started locking Helen in her room instead. We didn't fire her. We reduced her hours. From full-time to 3 days a week, then to 1 day a week. Then, Michael's voice got quieter. She quit 2 months ago. She said the conditions weren't appropriate for someone with Helen's needs. And you didn't think to tell me any of this? You were busy. You were always busy. We didn't want to bother you. But there was an edge to Vanessa's voice now. You hired us to handle things so you didn't have to deal with them. We were handling them by torturing her. We weren't. Michael stood up. We fed her. We kept her safe. The locked door was for her own protection. You don't know what it's like when she has one of her episodes. She gets violent. She scratches. She bites. Vanessa has scars from trying to change her clothes. I looked at Vanessa. She pulled up her sleeve, showing 4 parallel scratches on her forearm. They looked a few weeks old, still pink but healing. She did that when I tried to give her a bath, Vanessa said. She thought I was trying to drown her. She fought me for 20 minutes. By the time I got her out of the tub, we were both bleeding. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's was brutal. I knew that. I'd seen Helen's decline over the past 2 years. The confusion, the anger, the moments when she looked at me and didn't know who I was. But then I thought about the smell of that bedroom, the locked door, her lying in her own waste because she couldn't get to a bathroom. You should have told me it was too much. I would have hired professional care. I would have looked into memory care facilities. With what money? Michael's laugh was bitter. Those places cost $8,000 a month, minimum. For a decent one, you're looking at $12,000 to $15,000. Do you have that kind of cash lying around? I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't. My retirement savings were modest. The consulting work helped, but it wasn't enough to cover that kind of long-term expense. That's what I thought, Michael said. So we did what we had to do. We found a way to make it work. The poker games bring in about $4,000 a week. That covers Helen's medication, the medical supplies, the special food she needs, everything. We were managing. I repeated the word like it tasted foul. Is that what you call leaving her locked in a room for days at a time? Not days, hours. We locked the door when we had the games running. That's it. 4 hours, twice a week. She said days. She's confused. You know she's confused. Half the time she thinks it's 1,985 and she's late for work at the library. You can't trust what she says. I wanted to believe that. God, how I wanted to believe that my son wasn't the monster my gut was telling me he was. But something didn't add up. Show me the medical supplies. What? You said you buy medical supplies for her care. Show me where you keep them. Michael and Vanessa exchanged a look. They're in the hall, closet upstairs, Vanessa said finally. I went upstairs and opened the hall closet. Inside, I found a package of adult diapers, mostly full, a bottle of lotion, 1 box of disposable gloves. That was it. I came back downstairs holding the package of diapers. This is what you call adequate medical supplies? We just ran out. We were going to buy more tomorrow. The package is still 70% full, Michael. And these, I checked the label, these are the cheapest brand available. $29 for a 40-count package. Helen goes through at least 4 a day. This package should have been gone in 10 days. It's dated from April. It's July. The math was simple, brutal, undeniable. You weren't changing her regularly. You were leaving her in soiled diapers for hours, maybe days at a time. That's why she has infections. That's why she's developed bed sores. Vanessa started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. We did our best. We really did. But it's so hard. She fights us on everything. The medication makes her sleep for hours. And when she's asleep, we thought it was okay to just let her rest. What medication? They both went quiet. Vanessa, what medication are you giving Helen? Just her regular prescriptions. The Alzheimer's medication, the anti-anxiety pills. How much of the anti-anxiety medication? The prescribed dose. How much, Vanessa? 2 pills, twice a day. I closed my eyes. Helen's prescription was for 1 pill once a day, as needed for severe agitation. 2 pills twice a day would keep her in a sedated fog, too drowsy to protest, too confused to understand what was happening to her. You've been drugging her into compliance. It's not like that, Michael said quickly. The doctor said we could adjust the dosage based on her needs. When she gets really agitated, we give her a little more to calm her down. 4 times the prescribed dose isn't a little more. It's medical abuse. I pulled out my phone again. This time I pulled up my contact for Dr. Peterson, Helen's primary care physician. It was late, but this couldn't wait. Dad, don't. Michael moved toward me. Please. Just think about this for 1 night. Sleep on it. We can figure this out in the morning. Figure what out? How to hide the evidence. How to get your stories straight. I hit the call button. Michael's face hardened. If you call that doctor, I'll deny everything. We both will. It's your word against ours. And we're the ones who've been here taking care of her. You're the one who abandoned her to go play consultant. The phone rang once. Twice. We'll say you're the one who's been neglecting her, Vanessa added, her voice stronger now. You're the one who left her with us and never visited. We'll show them the consulting contracts, the plane tickets, the hotels. We'll prove you were gone more than you were here. Who do you think they'll believe? The phone rang a 3rd time. We'll say you're trying to frame us because you feel guilty, Michael continued. That you want to put the blame on us, instead of accepting that you're the one who failed her. Dr. Peterson's voicemail picked up. I listened to his cheerful recorded message asking me to leave my name and number. I hung up, not because Michael's threats had worked, but because I realized something important. If I called the authorities now, tonight, in the heat of emotion, it would turn into a he said, she said mess. Michael was right about one thing. I had been gone a lot. I had trusted him to handle Helen's care without much oversight. A skilled lawyer could twist that into parental neglect. I needed evidence. Real, documented, undeniable evidence. You're right, I said slowly. Let's sleep on it. We're all exhausted. We can talk more rationally in the morning. I could see the relief flood through them. They actually believed I was backing down. Thank you, Dad, Michael said. You won't regret this. We can make this work. We'll do better. We'll hire the nurse back. We'll stop the poker games. We'll talk in the morning, I repeated. I'm going to stay in the guest room tonight. I want to be close to your mother in case she needs anything. I went upstairs before they could respond. The guest room shared a wall with the master bedroom. I set up my laptop and began researching Washington state elder abuse laws. What I found made my blood run cold. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, physical neglect, medical abuse through overmedication, unlawful imprisonment. Each one was a felony. Combined, Michael and Vanessa were looking at years in prison, but I needed proof. Testimony from a confused Alzheimer's patient wouldn't be enough. I needed medical documentation. I needed witnesses. I needed a case so airtight that not even the most expensive lawyer could wiggle out of it. I spent the rest of the night making a plan. At 7 a.m., I called Dr. Peterson's office. I told the receptionist it was an emergency regarding Helen Thompson, and I needed the first available appointment. She had me come in at 9. Dr. Peterson took one look at Helen and immediately ordered a full workup. Blood tests, urinalysis, skin assessment, cognitive evaluation. He documented every bed sore, every sign of dehydration, every indication of neglect. How long has she been in this condition? He asked me, his expression grave. I don't know. I just got back from a business trip last night. My son and daughter-in-law have been her primary caregivers. He made notes on his tablet. The level of over-medication is concerning. Her drowsiness, the confusion beyond what I'd expect from her Alzheimer's progression. Someone has been giving her significantly more anti-anxiety medication than prescribed. Can you document that? I'm documenting everything. He looked at me over his reading glasses. Mr. Thompson, I'm obligated by law to report suspected elder abuse. What I'm seeing here meets the criteria. I'll be filing a report with Adult Protective Services today. Good, I said. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The APS investigator arrived at my house at 2 p.m. Her name was Janet Reeves, and she had the tired, seen-it-all demeanor of someone who'd worked in social services for too long. She interviewed Helen first, then me, then Michael and Vanessa separately. I showed her the bedroom where Helen had been kept, the deadbolt on the outside of the door, the limited medical supplies. I pulled up my bank statements showing the $5,000 monthly payments to Michael and the consulting contracts showing my travel schedule. I trusted them, I told Janet. I paid them generously to provide appropriate care. I had no idea this was happening. The challenge we face, Janet said carefully, is determining intent versus negligence. Your son and daughter-in-law claim they were overwhelmed and made poor decisions, but that they never intended harm. They locked her in a room and drugged her into compliance while they ran an illegal gambling operation downstairs. Do you have evidence of the gambling? I hesitated. I'd cleaned up the house after the poker players left. The table was gone. The chips were gone. Any physical evidence had been erased. No, I admitted. Just what I saw when I came home last night. Janet made notes. I'll be recommending that Helen be removed from their care immediately. As her spouse and legal power of attorney, you'll need to make arrangements for her ongoing care. But as for criminal charges, she trailed off. That's up to the prosecutor's office. What we have is clear evidence of neglect. Whether it rises to criminal abuse is another question. After she left, I sat in my living room, trying to figure out my next move. Michael and Vanessa had retreated to their bedroom, probably calling a lawyer. Helen was asleep upstairs, sedated now with the proper medication dosage, and finally comfortable. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Thompson, this is Derek Chan. I was at the poker game last night. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. About what? About what I saw, and what I know. I think you'll want to hear this. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. Derek was younger than I expected, maybe 35, wearing an expensive suit and driving a Tesla. He worked in tech, he explained, made good money, had been coming to Michael's poker games for 3 months. Why are you contacting me? I asked. Because what I saw last night was messed up. Derek stirred sugar into his coffee, not looking at me. I heard the yelling. I heard you asking about the locked bedroom, and I've heard Michael and Vanessa talking when they thought we weren't listening. What did you hear? That they were skimming money from you, the $5,000 a month you pay them? They weren't spending it on your wife's care. They were using maybe 1,000 of it, tops. The rest went to their lifestyle. Vacations, private school for their daughter, Vanessa's shopping habit. Can you prove that? I'm an accountant by training. I notice things. Like how Vanessa shows up wearing a different designer bag every week. How Michael brags about the all-inclusive resort in Mexico they went to in May. How they joke about the old man's money when they think we can't hear. My jaw clenched. Why didn't you say something before? It wasn't my business. Until last night. He finally looked at me. My grandmother died of Alzheimer's 2 years ago. Seeing your wife locked in that room, it brought back some hard memories. Nobody should be treated like that. Would you be willing to testify? If this goes to court, I'll do better than that. Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a video. I record the poker games sometimes. Just audio, for my own records. I like to analyze my play afterward, figure out where I made mistakes. Tuesday night's game is on here. You can hear everything. I watched, listened, as the audio played. Michael's voice, loud and clear. Dad's in Seattle until Friday. We're safe all week. Vanessa laughing. I gave her enough Xanax to knock out a horse. She'll sleep right through it. More voices, discussing the rake, the buy-ins, the monthly take. And then, faintly in the background, a woman's voice. Weak, desperate. Help me, please. Somebody help me. Helen. Calling out from her locked room, while 8 men played poker 1 floor below, and nobody had answered. The video was damning. More than damning. It was a prosecutor's dream. Send it to me, I said, my voice rough. Derek did. Then he leaned back in his chair. I've got one more thing for you. Contact information for the other 7 players. Some of them have been coming for months. They've seen things, heard things. A few of them are decent guys who might be willing to talk. Over the next 3 days, I built a case. 4 of the poker players agreed to give statements. They corroborated the timeline, the frequency of the games, the amount of money changing hands. They confirmed hearing Helen calling out and being told to ignore it. She's always like that, Michael had told them. Just confused. Nothing to worry about. Dr. Peterson's medical report came back. Severe dehydration, multiple stage 2 bed sores, urinary tract infection from inadequate hygiene, evidence of chronic over-medication. His professional opinion, Helen had been systematically neglected for a minimum of 3 to 4 months. I hired a forensic accountant to analyze my bank statements against the receipts and records Michael and Vanessa provided. They'd claimed to spend the $5,000 a month on Helen's care. The accountant found evidence of less than $800 per month in actual care-related expenses. The rest? Gone, pocketed, spent on themselves. The prosecutor assigned to the case was a woman named Sarah Martinez. She reviewed everything I'd gathered and let out a low whistle. This is solid, she said. Really solid. We can charge them with multiple felonies, elder abuse, financial exploitation, running an illegal gambling operation. They're looking at serious prison time. How much? With the evidence you've provided? I'd say we can argue for 10 to 15 years. Maybe more if the judge is particularly offended. 10 to 15 years. My son. In prison. For the first time since this started, I felt the weight of what I was doing. Not regret. Not exactly. but a profound sadness that it had come to this. That the boy I'd raised, the one I'd read bedtime stories to and taught to ride a bike and sent to college, had turned into someone capable of such cruelty. "There's one other option," Sarah said carefully. "They could plead guilty, accept responsibility. In exchange for a lesser sentence and agreement to pay full restitution, we might be able to negotiate something in the 5 to 7 year range. And Emma, their daughter, she'd go to her maternal grandmother while they're incarcerated. From what I understand, that's where she is now anyway." I thought about my granddaughter, 8 years old, about to learn that both her parents were going to prison, about to grow up with the stigma of having criminals for a family. But then I thought about Helen, about the way she'd cried when she saw me, about the smell of that room, about her voice on Derek's recording, begging for help that never came. "Whatever gets them the punishment they deserve," I told Sarah. "I'll support whatever you think is just." The trial, when it came, was mercifully short. Michael and Vanessa's lawyer tried to paint them as overwhelmed caregivers who made mistakes. But Derek's audio recording destroyed that defense. You couldn't listen to Vanessa joking about drugging Helen and believe it was an accident. You couldn't hear Michael laughing about the old man's money and think he was a devoted son. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced them to 12 years each. They'd be eligible for parole in 8 with good behavior. "Michael didn't look at me during the sentencing," Vanessa cried. "The bailiff led them away in handcuffs, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just a hollow emptiness where my son used to be." Helen died 6 months later. The neglect had taken too much of a toll on her already fragile system. The infections led to sepsis. The bed sores never fully healed. The over-medication had accelerated her cognitive decline to the point where she barely recognized me at the end. I held her hand in the hospital as her breathing slowed, then stopped. The doctor called time of death at 3:47 a.m. on a Sunday. I stayed with her for another hour, memorizing her face, saying all the things I should have said years ago. I sold the house. Too many bad memories. Too much guilt about the times I'd chosen work over being present. Too much anger at myself for trusting Michael without verifying. For not seeing the signs earlier. Emma came to live with me. Vanessa's mother had health problems of her own and couldn't handle an active 8-year-old. I was the only family Emma had left. We moved to a smaller place in Bellingham, closer to the water. Started over. She asks about her parents sometimes. I tell her the truth, in age-appropriate doses, that they made very bad choices, that they hurt someone who couldn't defend herself, that actions have consequences. But I also tell her that people are complicated, that her parents loved her, even if they did terrible things, that she doesn't have to carry their sins, that she gets to write her own story. I don't know if she believes me. She's 12 now, old enough to understand more than I'd like her to, old enough to look up the trial details online, old enough to be angry at me for putting her parents in prison. Maybe one day she'll forgive me, maybe she won't. But every night before I go to sleep, I think about Helen in that locked room, about her voice on the recording, about the choice between protecting my son and protecting my wife, and I know I made the right decision, even if it cost me everything.